All right, so it's that time again, Manga Haul time. And surprisingly, I picked up a lot of Volume 1s and Volume 2s of like new series that I've been trying out. And I've read most of these volumes in this Manga Haul. Listen, I know. And I have some thoughts. Some really good and some, not as good. One Punch Man. You know about One Punch Man. I can't read this volume because if you've checked out my other video, I had a misprint in volume 19, so I went actually to Books A Million to pick up a volume 19. It was out of stock. They didn't have it, so I'll probably have to go to like Amazon or the Crunchyroll store, but I really enjoy One Punch Man at a stopping point right now. Chainsaw Man, volume 14. It's Chainsaw Man. It's in the new arc. I still really need to read volume 13, which I have not yet, but volume 14, Chainsaw Man. Hey, it's Chainsaw Man. Speaking of a series that you know about, Dragon Ball Super. It's Dragon Ball Super. Maybe you've heard of it. Dragon Ball Super? Oshi No Ko, Volume 5. I actually need to read Volume 3 and 4. This is a series that I really enjoyed the first two volumes, but listen, I buy a lot of manga. I read a lot of manga. It just has fallen on the back burner. I know it shouldn't. I know this series is great. People love it. I need to hop on it. Hey, don't you like how I was like, I've read most of these volumes in this Manga Haul, and then we just went through like 4, and I was like, listen, I'll get around to it. One is not my fault. One is Viz's fault. But the rest, yeah, all right. But let's get into the manga that I have read. Sakura Saku, Volume 2. I read this volume. Okay, all right, here we go. Now we can talk about manga that I have actually read and really enjoy. So when this series was announced, I really just enjoyed the cover and kind of enjoyed the story that I thought it was going to tell. And it's one of a genre, it's more like shoujo type genre that I'm trying to branch out into. I did not expect to enjoy this duo of characters so much. And especially in this volume where she kind of comes to terms with her feelings for the brother of the person she thought she had feelings for, because he's the one that left the note that she found, that she thought he was going to be all about it, but she's actually fallen for the brother. Hear me out. I'm invested. I'm invested in this series already in 2 volumes. One, the covers are great. The art is really good, which is also surprising because if you've not checked out my shoujo video where I read shoujo for a week, I really did not like A Haru Ride, which is the same author as Sakura Saku. I have done the complete 180 opposite. I love this series. I am so invested in this series, and just the way the characters interact. The comedy works for me. The drama works for me. The angst, like the teenage angst of, does he like me? Does he not like me? It's all working for me. And I think it's because the duo and the main cast of characters are so likable, incredibly likable, that you kind of just want to spend time with them. I cannot say enough good things about this series. If you have ever been interested in kind of branching out into the shoujo genre, I recommend this. I'm not an expert. I just got here. Hey. But in non-expert opinion, I really just think that this is exactly what I want it to be. To switch gears, Windbreaker Volume 4. I really love this series too, but for the complete opposite reason. Well, kind of. I really like the cast of characters, but I love... This is one of the more recent new series to come out that does a perfect thing that shonens used to do a lot, which is to tell the story and tell the characters' background through fights. They're fighting and having this fighting monologue, and you're learning so much about them. And I think Windbreakers is doing it fantastically, especially this volume, because they're already at the end of their tournament arc. And the way that they are telling these characters' backgrounds through these fights is on display in this volume. I think this is such a fun volume. I think it's doing the shonen genre incredibly well. And I cannot wait to read more. Speaking of series that I really love, these next 2 series. Tokyo Babylon. One, I love that they are going so, I guess I'm going to say like loud with these covers. Like it's like red for the first volume. This is yellow and it just looks so good on the shelf. I love these covers. But 2, I knew nothing about this series. I really enjoyed the first volume. The second volume is no different. But what I didn't expect, especially this volume, it deals with a lot of heavy topics in unique ways. And I think that it handles it with genuine storytelling while also giving it some levity with this cast of characters that we're following. And the comedy elements work because it really is the polar opposite of the thing that they are investigating for that chapter or that arc or a little bit, a handful of chapters. And I cannot say enough good things about it. It came out of nowhere for me. I know Clamp is this really well-known group of authors. I have never read any of their works except for Tokyo Babylon. And boy, has the bar been set incredibly high. I cannot wait for the third volume. And if you want to talk about a series that deals with darkness and depression and broken characters, the one series currently that comes to my mind, Boys Abyss. Oh, especially this volume. A little bit of spoilers. This volume really delves into the mother-son relationship, which I was not expecting, and the student-teacher relationship. Once again, a lot of broken characters. And I'm going to say this now. If that is not your cup of tea, which understandable. It's not really my cup of tea. I'm always, every volume, I'm like, oh, it's getting darker. It's getting more depression. More broken characters. More of this. Oh no. But I'm committed. And while I definitely could see someone, even after this volume, I was like, oh, have they gone too far? That's the thing. But I think it works, and I think the reason I'm going to continue reading it, one, the story that they're following, which is like this guy who's, again, wants to leave this town, feels this commitment to these characters, whether it be a mother, a friend, or whatever it may be, and how every single person in his life is using that to their advantage. And maybe advantage is the wrong word, but they're so broken and dealing with their own thing. It is legitimately Misery Loves Company, the manga. But I think the artwork is gorgeous. I think the story is gorgeous. And I think the message and the story that it's trying to do is nuanced enough that it really pulls it off and really it enthralls me. This series, out of all of the series that I pick up, when I have this series in my hand, it gets read that night. It is one of the only series where I'm like, oh, I got the new volume. I'm going to read the new volume. So now for a bunch of the volume ones that I picked up. The first is Tokyo These Days. One, right off the bat, I love the binding. This small hardcover, it just feels so nice. It feels so high quality. I wish more manga would print like this. This is like the perfect. I like the Full Metal editions, but this is perfect. I love this binding. I love it. The story inside is about this manga editor who quits and just kind of gives up on it. And kind of it's these vignettes of his daily lives. Whether it's this manga author who comes to him and wants him to edit a series for them and pull him back into manga editing, or it's just him kind of hanging out with his bird. And the art definitely has this old school style, but I think it really works with the story that it's telling. And I just really love the idea that it's just a moment in his life. It's just a day in his life. And I've never read a work from this author before, but it made me really want to read more of his work. Which leads me into my next volume that I picked up. You know what? I'm just going to, here's some B-roll. I'm not going to try to pronounce this. Let me know in the comments down below. But this is, again, I love this bind. They are really, for this person's work, I love this binding for both of these. Now, I haven't read this one yet, and I believe it came out before Tokyo These Days. I am pretty sure. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't even know it was the same author. I just had heard that this is coming out. And again, it was one of those deluxe editions that I think is really nice. So I was going to check it out. And then I realized after reading Tokyo These Days, it's the same author. Again, I don't know too much about this one because I haven't read it yet. But if it's anything like Tokyo these days, I am really looking forward to it. Speaking of authors that I love Vinland Saga. And I actually picked up, in a bundle deal, Planets. And I've read both of these volumes. Volumes 1 and Volume 2. I did not know what to expect in this series. Again, since I hold Vinland Saga in such a high regard, I was excited. Now, while I don't think it resonated with me as much as Vinland Saga did, you can see the seeds of Vinland Saga in Planets. Because you follow this space crew as they just pick up debris about this war going on. And this is what I mean when I say planting seeds for it, because Vinland Saga deals with a lot of characters. This story really gives a lot of its characters time to shine. While there is the main character and he wants to go on a mission to Jupiter. That is, he becomes the main character. The world feels so fully realized because we spend quiet moments with a lot of what would be considered side characters. And I think while this whole story ends up kind of becoming a story about life, and honestly about the choices that you make and the people that you surround yourself with, you can kind of see this author and his signature style at this point of taking this setting but telling really, really personal stories about morality and kind of the cost of it just existing. So while I might not put it up there with Vinland Saga, I definitely think if you're a fan of Vinland Saga, you should check out Planets. I really enjoyed my time reading it. So, I've been like, I really enjoyed this series. Really look forward to this series. Let me talk to you about a series. I picked up the first volume. Not for me. I'm going to pass. Just not for me. But I respect it from a distance. Status Royale. Listen. I thought it would be kind of up my alley. I'm not the biggest video game player before, but I will tell you what really intrigues me is the world of professional video game players. I've watched some documentaries on it. I really do love that stuff. While, again, I'm not the biggest gamer in the world, I love that aspect of esports. I finished this volume, I put it down, and I said, none of the characters grab me. While I do think the art style really reminds me of Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which I think is good. I think the art style is cool and it really works for the story and the world that it's trying to tell. And again, it might be for you. You might find something, you might latch on to something that I didn't. I just could not care less for the story that it was telling and the characters that it was creating. So much so that usually I give it a few volumes. And maybe, if you say in the comments, listen, volume 2, that's where it picks its stride. Maybe you could convince me to read a volume 2. But by the end of volume 1, I just said, I don't care where the story goes. I don't care where these characters go. And that's okay, I think. I think it's okay not to like something, and I didn't care for it, personally. But talking about a surprise, especially relating to characters, picked up the first volume of My Lovesick Life as a 90s Otaku. Let me tell, but man, hold on, wait. Hold on. Just hear me out. I'd seen Marge Reads Manga on Instagram talking about this series, I believe. And maybe Dragon Ball Zoe, I believe, also talk about this series. But I didn't really know what the story was about. And I am enthralled with it. I think the comedy is amazing. It reminds me of Wotakoi, which, again, loves Hard for an Otaku. Like, it reminds me of that series, which I absolutely love. But I feel like it's also telling a story that I personally haven't read before. It goes from the future. You're watching, like, this 47-year-old woman watch her daughter, who's about 16, go to high school, like, decked out in all this anime stuff. And she's like, you don't know. I used to have to hide my otakuness. It wasn't just so popular and so on, like, Front Street and stuff for your friends. They used to make fun of us. And then it goes into the past, and you go, live through her high school career as she's trying to kind of find love or find a boyfriend or find a husband and whatnot. Because I don't think there's a ton of stories kind of going through or trying to talk about how back in the day, listen, I grew up in the 90s. Back in the day, anime and stuff and being a fan of this kind of things was not very popular. And watching that juxtaposition is such an interesting story. That's what makes it so exciting. And also the references to like Slam Dunk and Sailor Moon and all of these series that were very popular in the 90s. I think it's incredibly ingenious of this author to write about this stuff. And it seems like she's writing from personal experience, and I think it comes through. Let me tell you a story. Okay, while I might not be the biggest anime fan and stuff growing up, I was a fan of Dragon Ball Z. I had the VHS tapes. They made a cool little picture. I had them on a... If you don't know, there used to be towers where you could put your VHSs in. When, let's say, romantic interest were coming over, I might have picked up this tower, put it in my closet, closed the door. Maybe. That might have happened. Okay? It definitely did happen multiple times. Okay? Listen, I wasn't as strong as I am now on YouTube, literally talking about my love for this kind of stuff. I've grown. That's what I'm saying. I've grown. And I'm proud of myself now. But to say that I did not relate to this main character would be a lie. And I think that's what really latched on. While I don't think it's perfect, I do think the writing is really funny at times. And the characters are really enjoyable. And like I said, I just told you a story. I very much relate to this character. And I think that definitely helps my love for this series. I legitimately cannot wait to read a volume 2. Speaking of another series I cannot wait to read a volume 2 of, Still of the Celestial Shadows. I did not know anything about this story going in. I think it really pulled it off. While it kind of starts as like this comedy about this samurai who's down his luck, can't get a job because he's afraid of steel. Come to find out, he's not afraid of steel. Steel's kind of afraid of him. It kind of bounces away from him, and it kind of... And there's this really funny... It happens in the first chapter, so it's not really spoiled. But like, the steel bumps away and then hits this dude in the forehead. Doesn't take him out, doesn't. So that's why it's funny. That comedy aspect of kind of almost a klutz, like tripping his way through this battle as the blades are kind of bouncing off of him and damaging his attackers, I think was so perfectly executed. And while I think this story could have definitely just lived on that premise alone and kind of done this comedy thing, down on his luck, has these weird powers. By the end of this volume, a little bit of spoilers, not much. So if you want to just skip ahead, there's timestamps down below of the volumes I'm talking about. You can skip this part, but by the end of it, it has opened this world, and that maybe his powers are part of a greater story, and it has hooked me. I think the art's pretty good. I really like the time period that it's set in, and I really like this world that it's setting up of like, what's going on? Where does his powers actually come from? Is there a bigger world here? Or at least it teases that there's a bigger, more powerful world here. And the final panel that I'm not going to show in B-roll makes it seem like I have no idea where this story could go. It could turn into a comedy. It could turn into a shonen. Another series that I think had a strong first volume, and I had heard a little bit about this series. That's what made me want to pick it up. What's Wrong with Secretary Kim? It's actually fully colored, which I did not expect, and I really enjoyed it. I read it all in one sitting, and talking about, and I've talked about it a little bit in this video, but like talking about a duo of characters that you end up really wanting to know more about. Secretary Kim and her boss, Young Jun, have such a great dynamic. If you have watched any of the Marvel movies or read Marvel comic books, maybe they're in that, but like Marvel movies, Pepper Potts, Tony Stark, that's what you have to talk about. Like that is legitimately kind of the vibe that these characters give off, and I think it's played incredibly well, written incredibly well. The story is kind of, she's been his secretary for about 9 years. She's decided to quit the job because she wants to find a husband and kind of just live her life because she has been on a call for him for 9 years. He is kind of this playboy character, but like she has said multiple times, he really hasn't had, he always goes home and sleeps by himself. So he's kind of got this backstory that's very interesting. She has this backstory about something happened maybe with this kid in a past. I wonder if it's Young Jun. Think about that. It could be. I don't know. Like, you just kind of see it in these like hazy flashbacks that she's trying to figure out of like, was I in an accident when I was younger? What's going on? So there is a little bit of intrigue, but their dialogue together and their stories together. I don't know if, I think he's romantically interested in her, but he's like, no, I just don't want her to leave. So she's trying to give him like someone to replace her. He's asking wild questions of like, what's, I don't know, the capital of Jupiter. Not an actual question in the series, but you kind of get it, just really astronomical questions like no one would know the answers to because he doesn't want her to leave. And that is pretty much what the first volume is about, is building these characters past and their relationship now, and kind of he cares for her. But does he actually care for her? Is he capable of caring about anybody but himself? And her story of wanting to break away from really this guy that's pretty controlling and wanting to live her own life and kind of find a husband and have this kids and have this life because she is getting older. And I think it's really well done. So if that story is interesting to you, I highly recommend picking up this book because also it's in color. It might be a manhwa, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, let me know in the comments down below. And for the final volume that I picked up this month, I want to end this love game, volume 1. So, I have talked a lot this video about like the nuance of this and this character, like they're really working it out. I enjoyed this volume 1 because it is 100% a romance comedy, a rom-com, which there's nothing bad about it, but it definitely has like that popcorn rom-com feel. I do think it's interesting that the story of they grew up together and they've always wanted to make each other's hearts flutter. It's the love game that they play. So they, you know, say romantic things or off-kilter things to one another to try to get a reaction out of them. Because they just really don't want to come to terms with their feelings for each other. And now that they are in high school, the feelings are getting stronger. And I just think the comedy works so well. I've really been on a comedy kick this pickup, this Manga Haul. I cannot be more excited about it. Like, this to me has some genuinely funny parts. And again, I'm not saying like it's a nuanced story, right? Like but there's something to be said about just a standard romantic comedy. It's kind of like turn your brain off, just kind of enjoy these characters' interaction and enjoy this comedy that it's telling you. And it might turn out to be a deeper story. But at least in this first volume, it was just a really fun, romantic comedy. And that's my Manga Haul. You know, like I said, not a very big Manga Haul, but what really got me excited, a ton of volume 1s, a ton of new series that I'm checking out, a lot of volume 2s that solidified some series of like, oh, I am committed. I'm going to see this story all the way through. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below what you picked up, what you've been reading. If you've read any of these, let's talk in the comments down below. Because I'm going to be honest, I don't have many people to talk about, you know, I want to end this love game with, or my love life as a 90s otaku. So if you've been reading that series, let's talk in the comments down below. They're good, aren't they? They're really good. They're like, I am surprised. But as always, I wholeheartedly appreciate it if you've made it to the end of this video. It means the world to me. And I hope if you're having a bad day, it's better. If you're having a good day, it becomes fantastic. I'll see you next time.